Why does Ross Jeffries reject the mystery methods concept of value and demonstrations of higher value?
There's a distinction between demonstrating higher value and delivering higher value. To me, and also higher value is measured by what, and can you really see it? Let me try to unpack this. There's a distinction between being entertaining, which is good, and being fascinating, which is good, and being confident, which is good, and this abstract idea of value. I happen to take on the idea that all human beings have inherent, innate, unprovable value. What is delivering high value? To me, high value is delivering the emotional states that women want to experience, feeling fascinated, feeling an incredible connection, feeling safe to do things that they would never do if their girlfriends could find out. That's delivering higher value. And also demonstrating higher value by telling stories about what you did is really not demonstrating higher value. They would have to actually observe you being a leader of men. They would actually have to observe you being someone who is a protector of children. They're not actually observing it. They're hearing you tell stories about it. So are you even really demonstrating higher value or just telling stories about it? Now, I get that being comfortable in a situation where every other man is not, or most men are not, and having a non-reactive frame and being charming and the rest of it is, in a sense, delivering value. But do you understand what I'm talking about? There's a distinction between demonstrating it somehow and delivering it.
Instant value and demonstrating value.
And even there, when you tell stories about all your adventures, I don't think you're really demonstrating it. You're demonstrating you're a good storyteller. You're just talking about it. The actual demonstration would be some point where they can actually observe you. I think Eric talks about being a leader of men and protector of loved ones, and I forget what else. He
Successful risk taker, willingness to
successful risk
emote,
taker. Yeah,
willingness to walk away.
willingness to walk away. You can demonstrate that by the way you behave in a club. I get those last two. But how do you really demonstrate that? Protector of loved ones and I don't see how you do that. But again, my knowledge is limited, and I never say things are impossible. All I can say is based on my own knowledge and my own system and my own experience, I don't know how to do it, and it doesn't seem to be the most efficient way to me. That's all I can say. I never said it didn't work. Well, in the beginning I did, but that was based on my own insecurities and need to be obsessively competitive. But I'm sure there's some value in it. I 100% believe that Eric can do it. I've watched him. But you have to ask yourself, he's extremely charismatic. He's an extremely charismatic human being. He draws people. Could you pull it off if you didn't have that level of charisma? Baxter has a different kind of charisma. It's sort of a joy of life that's kind of quieter, but you have a joy of life and a love of people that's a form of charisma. And I don't know, you don't need that to do speed seduction. It certainly helps, but I don't know. I don't know if that's a good answer or not. It's my honest answer.
Interesting. What do you
Yeah, I mean,
think, Dexter?
I just think there's gambits for everything, and it's finding out what the gambit or pattern is, and then creating something from that. And but because I feel that I've been doing this my whole adulthood, and I've been doing it longer than I haven't been doing it, right? So my brain was a sponge at 19, and it doesn't really know any different. So it makes patterns and routines out of nearly everything unconsciously.
Yes, me too.
So yeah. So with that, there's always going to be for me, there's always a way out, there's always a gambit for it. So if I'm going to be saying proving that I'm with without telling a story that I'm protector of loved ones, because we do have stories, gambits for that. To show it, what I've done in the past is I've tapped my elbow and say, "Come on, I want to tell you something about yourself. I'll look after you," and then I'll say, and then I'll move to another. So guide her through, protecting her through the bar or the club. Obviously, I'm not doing this in a park. And then I'm locking in. And as I'm moving through, I say, no one dies on my watch. Just so you know, no one dies on my watch. Like that. And they laugh. And it's good that you laugh. It means you've got a sense of humor to go with your looks. But what else have you got going for you? And then I might go into qualification. But that's one little tick in the brain. Now, I'm not saying it's the strongest tick. I'm not saying we can't add more to that and we can't top it up with a story. But obviously, if you're going to be seeing there more and more, then you've got more opportunity to prove these
That,
things as well.
Robert, isn't that more demonstrating confidence than it is demonstrating protecting a loved one? I mean, you're not really protecting her from any genuine harm. You're
Well,
protecting.
there's subtleties as well. Like if someone's in the way, you quickly just put your hand on the small of her back and you move her somewhere else of the
Good
room.
guide. That's being a good guide and a good
Yeah.
leader. I'll also say something. I know you did an episode with Eric where he did not like my critique of his method at all. I'll also say, and this is tangential to your question, I think and this could be my prejudice because being a hypnotist for 30 years, I'm trained to look at things as having hypnotic elements. I don't mean that you put someone to sleep and order them to do things against their command, but pattern interrupts. If you think about pattern interrupts, and this is based on my very limited knowledge of mystery method, very limited. I'm actually looking forward to the day where you can take me in field, Robert, and teach me. I really am. I'm not joking. I swear on my cats. I would love to see
Let's
it.
do it.
Let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
That would be a great piece of footage that people would die to see. Don't you think, Ice?
I'll fucking come. San Diego. Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's do
yeah.
it.
I think for me and Eric, there'd be too big a class of egos. My ego, I'm not just saying about him. But when you interrupt patterns, that's a very hypnotic thing to do. It creates suggestibility. So correct me if I'm wrong, Baxter. One of the things that you do in Mystery Method is rather than approach or open the most beautiful girl in the group, you either open with someone else or you open the group as a whole and don't give her the attention that she's used to getting from the average frustrated chump. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, if you're going strictly mystery method, you're going to be going down that route more. If you, what I'm doing is I live somewhere where I call semi-rect, semi-direct. So I'm not direct, I'm not indirect. I'm living in this world of does he like me, doesn't he like me? But he seems very, playful, cheeky. I'm not ashamed to, be a sexual being without being creepy or,
Right.
saying things that's going to put her off. So I don't find that. I don't find that happening to me in that way. So I'm going to be talking to him in a totally different mindset. So sometimes I'll go for the hottest girl in the room if I figuring out, okay, this is the best move I can do. Yeah, I'm gonna do this move. But sometimes I want to do, and this is very mystery method, the adjacent set. So you get that group or that girl really stimulated, laughing. They see the energy, the commotion going on. Then you merge the sets. So you say, "Hey guys, check this out. I want to show you a mini miracle," or whatever your merging gambit is. All right. Hey, we're just having a debate. We're just checking, whatever it is, and then merge the sets in, and now you're the, as it were, emperor of the group or the prize of the group,
I
and
get
it's
it.
easier then to get to the girl
Right.
that you find the most attractive
I
because you're
get it.
not showing that much interest. I mean, there's a lot. I'm not saying then you can't focus on her more. So I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't live in indirect too much. I don't live in direct too much. I'm like somewhere in the middle. Be like water.
But oh, see, there's the Bruce Lee. By the way, I think this distinction between indirect and direct, I kind of get it, but in another sense, I don't. I think there's only effective game. What works? I think you can be direct if you're not attached to the outcome and if you can make them laugh. And I've done this with women who are 20, 30 years younger than I am. First, I give an innocuous compliment, like, love those Uggs. Where did you get those Uggs? And then the minute they answer, that's only designed to get initial eye contact. Then I'll say, well, I've got to ask, you don't work for the Department of Defense, do you? And when they look puzzled and they say no, I'll say, because your eyes are weapons of mass distraction. Now, that will get a laugh. And as soon as it does, I own it. I own that it's cheesy. You've got to own it. I'll say, okay, that was really cheesy. But as soon as I saw you, I thought, she just radiates that she cares deeply about other people, but she doesn't give a fuck about what other people think about her. Talk to her for a minute and see if she has a fun sense of humor. Now, what am I doing there? First of all, I'm going back and forth. I'm demonstrating that I've got balls, that I can laugh at myself, that I'm vulnerable enough to reveal my intention. And then I'm setting a frame where it's a false time constraint, and I'm qualifying her. I'm taking her looks off the table. I never
Yeah,
said she's
great.
beautiful. I take her looks off the table and say, see if she has a
Mm.
fun sense of humor. So now I'm qualifying her, not the other way around. So that's an example of being direct, but you do it with a sense of humor, and you do it in a way where you demonstrate four different vibes: that you're strong and commanding, you have balls, you own your intent. You've got to own your intent. The trouble with indirect is you're not owning your intent, and owning your intent without being needy is extremely attractive. If you can own your intent without being needy and mix it with a sense of humor, that's fucking super attractive. That's direct but non-attached and with a sense of humor. If you can then put her in a frame where she has to prove herself, and don't even compliment her on her looks. Take the looks off the table. And in and of itself, it's a pattern interrupt, because a beautiful woman, can't count the number of times a woman has told me, you didn't compliment me on my looks. So many guys tell me how beautiful I am. It gets sickening. I just can't distinguish it. Now, if the guy's super good looking, he tells me I'm beautiful, that'll buy him 3 or 4 minutes, but that's all it'll buy him. One of the brilliant things that Eric did say that I really have adapted is the first 30 to 60 seconds, I may be misquoting him, is designed to buy you the next 3 minutes. And the next 3 minutes is designed to buy you
Hmm.
the next
That's
10.
correct. Yeah.
He said something along those lines. I'm not getting it exactly right, but that's
Hmm.
90% right. I need to pause and get a drink of water.
No
Hey, Coach.
problem.
I'll just say,
Well, I've got similar actually. So ones that I will say is they're the second best shoes I've seen today. So the opener as they're walking or you're following even over your shoulder to them, right? Don't be stopping them in the street too much. And then I'll point, they're the second best shoes I've seen today. And then I'll trail back up to my eyes from the shoes. And as they make first eye contact with me, they'll say one of two things usually, which is who's got the first, and I'll say this guy. So now I'm making fun of it. Out, or they'll go, or they'll say thank you. So for me, that's what I'm calling like semi-direct, semi-rect opener. They're the second best shoes I've seen today. Who's got the first? Oh, this guy. So that's one. Another one is because I'm sort of showing my intent there. And then the next is I'll do this like in a bar or somewhere, and I'll do this non-verbal one like that. And as they look, they see that I'm. It looks like I'm hiding. Most guys are staring. I'll point at them and I'll go like that, and I've not even said anything yet. And if they play along, they're playing along or they're smiling, then I'll go in direct, and I'll say, "Are you following me?" Like that, and they'll be like, no, or yes. They'll play along sometimes. So yes, and I'll go good because I'm worth it. High five or whatever I'm doing there, and then I can go into a pattern or a routine or a gambit. And another one is which is showing semi-rect interest is um the sharp elbow. Have you heard the sharp elbow one? So
no.
what I'll do is a lot of girls will be holding a drink like this or have their hand on their hip, and I'll just go by and I'll just the lightest you can do, just tap the elbow like this. And as they turn, I go, oh, that's a sharp elbow. And they go, oh, sorry. And I go, is that to keep, is that to keep the boys away? Like that.
I love it. That's hilarious.
That's
And
a
then
good
they'll
one.
be like, yeah, or no, whatever. And then I'll say, but they'll play along usually. And I'll say, that's okay, because I'm a man, not a boy. And then I'll move forward.
Oh, I love
Mic
it.
drop.
That's
Fucking
that's
mic drop.
golden. That's golden.
God damn. Back to the DHV things. I will say that in the past few days I was actually writing an article about Mystery's 5 DHV types. One of the other ones was pre-selection, by the way, and that one's more obvious rather
Pre-selection by what?
just pre-selection in general. So as vague as that is, it can be very obvious if you have women with you, that's obvious pre-selection. But there are other forms. My
But then you
point
get the
being,
idiots, then you get the complete idiots like Michael Sartain, who teach you to have pre-selection by creating bikini contests and all that other nonsense. So you can carry that to absurd extremes. Oh, did I say Sartain is an idiot? Sorry. I didn't mean to say he's uh, a spineless idiot who cons men. I'm not saying that.
are we calling for a debate now?
I wouldn't, he doesn't deserve to speak with me. But anyway, let's keep going. I had to bring some unpleasantness into this otherwise.
Pattern interrupt. Anyway, back to the DHV stuff. It occurred to me, and some of this might seem pretty obvious, of course, but when I first like heard the term DHV and stuff, it was all vague to me, and I pretty much ignored it for like the most part. And then since writing about it a few days ago, I kind of realized demonstrations of higher value. I don't think it's actually about value, but it's really demonstrations of how attractive you are, if you put it in the simplest terms.
I'll buy that.
So I think that makes more sense because, like you say, the way you language things really decides, in some ways, your fate and how you perceive reality. But if you think about DHVs in terms of attraction, I can see how, and I agree with you that DHV stories can be like bragging. And I think that is basically bragging, I suppose. Although you're possibly also demonstrating your good storytelling, so that's a good point too.
That's a good point.
However, if you really think about it in terms of like the value is that you are attractive and you're displaying how attractive you are. It's just another one, for example, was the leader of men, and was the other one like protector of loved ones. I kind of realized that these are kind of evolutionary because you have to be a protector of loved ones thousands of years ago for your tribe, not a psychopath that she can't have children with. So that would be unattractive if you were not a good option to mate with. And the leader of men, Baxter, talking about merging groups together and the adjacent set, for example, that's kind of a DHV in itself. That's attraction
It's
in the
also
sense that he's
demonstrating
leading.
it's demonstrating something else. It's demonstrating high social skills, high social intelligence, which I think high social intelligence is a survival trait, as is emotional intelligence. When you demonstrate emotional intelligence, and that requires you get genuinely, here's where we take a deep dive. To demonstrate emotional intelligence, EQ, you have to get genuinely curious about the other person. You have to really be interested in what makes them tick, and you also have to be emotionally self-regulated. Those things are very, very attractive. So if you're busy talking about yourself and talking about how you did this and this is your achievement, then you can't really get genuinely curious about the other person, or even if you do, you can't demonstrate it. So and even with speed seduction, that's true. It's a delicate balance if you really want to get mastery towards showing that you're genuinely curious about the other person. I have something I give away for free. I don't do it anymore, called the Curiosity Code, where we teach guys some ways that they can get genuinely curious about women without interrogating them, without making it seem like it's an interview or an interrogation or an audition. And I think that's an advanced skill. So if you talk too much about yourself, you can't really do that. But Baxter, I believe, is so skilled and is so charming, is so charismatic. He could read Sanskrit backwards, and the women would be leaping on him.
So what you said kind of makes
I hope that's
sense.
true. I wish that's true.
What you were saying about emotional intelligence, that makes sense in terms of what Mystery was talking about with willingness to emote. So that makes even more sense now. So
No, I'm
pretty
not talking about
interesting.
willingness to emote. I'm talking about understanding where the other person is coming from emotionally
Hmm.
and understanding emotional nuance and being emotionally nuanced yourself.
Yeah.
understanding their different flavors. I like, for example, I can hold two thoughts in my head at the same time. I don't want to get political, so let's not get political on this show. Well, I'm not going to, out of respect for both of you, even though I want to. I'm very proud to be Jewish today. Um,
I'm okay with that.
huh?
I'm okay either way. Doesn't matter.
Well, for example, I'm thrilled that Israel is pounding the crap out of Iran and cutting the head off the snake of worldwide terror. On the other hand, the Buddhist part of me is appalled at any life being lost, innocent or otherwise. So
Yeah.
I'm holding two thoughts in my head at the same time. That's part of being emotionally intelligent, is to recognize where you're having your own internal conflict rather than bury it and to push it down and suppress it. So being emotionally nuanced, it doesn't mean you're weak, doesn't mean you cry and become her girlfriend with a penis. It just means that you're self-aware.
Mm.
And
Makes a
this
lot
Yeah,
of
yes.
sense.
and this goes back to one more thing that's very rare, which is radical self-acceptance. I recall this when I was 19. I read a book by Albert Ellis, who is the founder of rational emotive therapy. And he said, if you can accept yourself, even if you fail or you go through an embarrassing situations, if you can still radically accept yourself, millions of women will want to screw you because they don't have that. And I didn't really recognize this until fairly recently. And I underwent an experience of profound self-forgiveness. I'll just say it, I don't care. I'm an open book. I the last month I completed my first month of microdosing with psilocybin. I highly recommend it to anyone who hasn't done it. And I can't recommend things, but it's changed my world. And I really experienced a flood of self-forgiveness for a lot of fuck ups I've done over the past 60 years. People have been telling me for years, therapists and advisors, you need to forgive yourself, but they never gave me a good method. But I remember meditating. I won't get into details, but I really have felt that release since then. I think self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, they're not sexy. They're not, you can't sell it because it's not attractive or flashy, but it's a really important, powerful aspect of game that I've never thought about before. What to say taught it. And I think Robert is also someone who this is my observation about you, is someone who radically accepts that he can fuck up and not beat on himself for it, and that it's part of his learning. This is something I always liked about you. I don't know if I ever revealed this to you. Even when you were wet behind the ears, you just seemed so eager to learn that you didn't care if you tripped on yourself. You just wanted to learn and had to have some mechanism where you just either brushed off the mistakes or forgave yourself for them and went right on going. You have I'm sure you have your days where you critique yourself and you hate on yourself, but all in all, I would say you're a very joyous and self-accepting human being. I don't think you have a mean or hateful bone in your body. I really don't.
It's good to hear. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I
Where
think experiment. Go on.
I'm sorry, where I have had mean and hateful bones in my body, I've chipped them away and cleansed them away through meditating, for the most part.
I mean, I think experimentation is part of my game. So when I am in field, even though I might have a bit of a structure, it can go lucid when it needs to. Uh, I always want to throw something in. So as soon as I hear a routine that I like, I want to go and experiment with that. Or if someone said something to me, even a girl in set, the next set, I'll say it in the next literal set. And that was something that like Mystery was always said. He said, as soon as you hear something, you're going to do it straight away in the next set. So yeah, experimenting, you're only going to find your own way and your own feet by experimentation, and you're going to learn a lot from it, and you're never going to be living outside the comfort zone bubble. And we all know life begins outside the comfort zone. And the more you're doing it, and the more you're experimenting, and if you're doing a lot of sets early on in the game to practice with volume and velocity, I think that you're going to be someone that's open to experimentation, and that also gives you a really good knowledge, micro calibration of when people say when you're in field, anything can happen, anything random can happen. So you're ready for that. You're ready for all circumstances.
Mm.